What scary gut feeling did you have that turned out to be true? 1. I was watching a movie with my roommate on a hot summer night. In an instant, I went from feeling completely relaxed to hyper alert. I had one thought in my head: close your bedroom window. I looked at my roommate and said, I have to close my bedroom window, and tore off down the hall. When I got into my bedroom, I could see a gloved hand on my window. It was the kind of window that opens out, and you pull it in to close it. There was a guy standing on the railing of our back stairs, trying to pull himself into our house through my window. I screamed. He dropped and ran, and I called 911. The police came with dogs but never found him. We didn't live in an unsafe neighborhood, and sitting in the house with the windows open in the summer wasn't something we ever worried about. I know that God, a guardian angel, or something was looking out for us that night. 2. I woke up one morning after having a bizarre nightmare. I dreamt that I called my boss and told him my youngest son was going to die. My son was only 10 days old at the time, a perfectly healthy, beautiful little baby boy. When I woke up, I felt nauseous from the dream and experienced the worst anxiety I've ever had. I knew intuitively that something was wrong with my son. He didn't show any rare signs or specific symptoms. The only thing that was odd was that he slept a bit heavier than usual that night. I couldn't ignore my anxiety. I checked his temperature and was shocked when it showed 35.1 degrees Celsius. I immediately took him to the ER and soon found out that an enterovirus, a normal winter season virus that gives you a cold, had affected his heart. The room was soon filled with doctors, and my husband and I were asked to leave. 12 hours later, the doctors informed us that the virus had caused our healthy baby serious heart failure, dilated cardiomyopathy, and myocarditis, and that he probably wouldn't make it. They called a priest, and the rest is a blur to me. Our baby was put into a coma on a respirator and was going to be placed on an ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, machine. We were transferred to the ICU for infants. After 2 months in the ICU, he suddenly improved. The doctors told us that almost no children survive this virus on the heart because there are no obvious or clear signs, so the parents don't realize something is wrong. They also said that what he survived was theoretically impossible considering how ill he was. They asked me what caused us to seek help, and I told them about my dream. I will never forget the doctor's response: there are some things between heaven and earth that medicine can't explain. Your boy is a living miracle. He turns 5 next year and is almost fully recovered from the heart failure, except for 1/8 of his heart that is permanently damaged. 3. Around 2020, my brother was out with a girl, and I had gone to bed. I had work the next day, and we both still lived with our parents. Late at night, maybe around 11:30 or midnight, I woke up with a terrible feeling that something awful had happened to my brother. It's probably the only time in my life I've experienced genuine panic. I tried calling him on my mobile to no avail and went downstairs to my mom, who was still up at the time. She tried calling on the house phone. She tried to calm me down, but I just knew something had happened. As it turned out, his phone was on silent, and he had taken this girl for a drive. She had just started taking lessons, and he let her drive his car. During the drive, she lost control, and they narrowly avoided a collision. Thankfully, they were both fine, though very shaken, and my brother drove from that point on. Somehow, my out-of-nowhere gut feeling mirrored my brother's life flashing before his eyes. 4. I was downstairs one day, and my daughter was in her bedroom. I suddenly got this strange, indescribable feeling, like something was urging me to check on her. I couldn't brush it off, so I did. Upon reaching her room, I found her partway through taking an overdose. Luckily, I caught her just before she was about to take a handful of pills. I'll never understand what or who was looking out for her that day, but I am so thankful they were. 5. My siblings and I were swimming at a neighbor's house with their kids, but the adults were inside. Randomly, a thought came into my head: where's my sister? She could easily have gone inside or walked across the street back home, but I felt like I needed to find her immediately. I got all of us kids to search. We eventually noticed she was at the bottom of the pool, completely blue. She made a full recovery and is one of the best parts of my life. 6. You know that feeling when you're going down a flight of stairs and you miss one? That was how I felt when I shook hands with another attendee at a martial arts workshop I went to many years ago. It was like I was suddenly falling, disoriented and scared. The second I took his hand, that feeling hit me, and I nearly felt sick. This guy wasn't intimidating, he was actually nerdy and awkward looking. I couldn't figure out why he made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, but I felt awful whenever he was nearby. At the end of the workshop, I asked my biggest, strongest looking buddy to walk me home. I felt stupid for being scared, so I didn't tell him why. I made up some excuse. He agreed, and I told him to meet me at the exit to the women's locker room at the back of the building. When I left the locker room, I found the guy waiting for me, poking his head around the corner and staring. When I locked eyes with him, he stepped out of the shadows and into my path. He didn't say a word, he just marched toward me, unblinking. At that exact moment, my buddy came around the other side of the building and shouted hello. I looked over at him and then back at the guy in front of me, who was now running away. When my friend reached me, he looked over my shoulder and said, "Did that guy just snarl at me? What's his problem?" I told him I thought I had just dodged a bullet, and drinks were on me. 7. On a blustery but sunny March day, I took my toddler out to our swing set in the backyard for some exercise. He was so excited to swing after a long winter in the house. Within a few minutes, I got a very creepy feeling that we needed to go back inside the house immediately. I snatched him off the swing, but he protested. "Mommy, we just got here." I told him, "Joel, I'm just worried about our safety right now." I carried him and hurried into the house. After I set him down on the kitchen floor, he walked over to the living room window to look out at the swing set. "Mommy, you were right," he said, puzzled. I walked over to the window to see why he had said that. To my astonishment, a huge maple tree from the neighboring woods had split, and half of it fell directly onto the swing set, smashing it to smithereens, right where we had been standing a few minutes earlier. It must have happened as we were walking into the house. We would have both been killed. I now believe in guardian angels. It just wasn't our time, I guess.